I was standing in the airport security line, with my boarding pass in one hand and my phone in the other, when my little sister called me crying. She didn't say hello. She just whispered, "If you get on that plane, I don't think Mom will ever recover." I looked through the glass at the plane that was about to take me toward everything I'd worked for, and for the first time in my life, I wanted time to stop. Ever since I was a kid, I had one dream that never changed. While my friends wanted to be athletes, musicians, or YouTubers, I wanted to become a wildlife photographer. I wasn't interested in fame. I wanted to tell stories through pictures. I wanted people to care about places they'd never seen and animals they'd never meet. When I was 12, my grandfather gave me an old camera he bought at a garage sale for $20. "It doesn't matter what camera you have," he used to tell me. "People remember the heart behind the picture." I carried that camera everywhere. Our family wasn't wealthy. My mom worked double shifts as a nurse after my dad left when I was 10. She never complained. Even on the nights when she came home so exhausted that she'd fall asleep on the couch before dinner, I knew money was always tight. Still, every birthday, she'd somehow find enough to print a few of my favorite photographs. She hung them all over our hallway, like they belonged in an art gallery. Every time someone visited, she'd point at them proudly. "My son took these." Even when they were blurry, even when they weren't very good, to her, they were masterpieces. Years passed, and I kept chasing that dream. I studied photography in college while working nights stocking shelves at a grocery store. Some weeks I slept for hours a night. There were moments I wanted to quit. Every rejection email felt personal. Every unpaid internship made me wonder if passion was enough. Then one afternoon, I received an email that changed everything. A conservation organization based in Alaska had selected me for a year-long wildlife photography fellowship. It was the opportunity photographers waited decades for. The program accepted only one person each year. Housing was included. Travel was covered. My work would be published internationally. Read the email at least 15 times before I believed it was real. I called Mom. First, she screamed louder than I did. I knew it. She shouted, "I knew one of those hallway pictures would take you somewhere." That night we celebrated with takeout. Pizza, because that's what we always did when something good happened. Mom smiled through every bite. "You know, earned this. I couldn't have done it without you." She waved her hand. "You did the work." "No. You worked every holiday. You worked every birthday. You gave up everything." She looked at me for a long moment. You becoming who you were meant to be wasn't something I gave up. It was something I invested in. I'll never forget those words. 3 weeks later, everything changed. Mom collapsed during her shift. It wasn't a heart attack. It was a stroke, thankfully. She survived, but recovery was slow. The woman who never asked anyone for help suddenly needed help. Standing up, she hated every second of it. "I can do it myself," she'd insist before nearly losing her balance. My younger sister, Lily, was still finishing college and lived almost 2 hours away. Most of Mom's appointments fell on weekdays. I started taking her. At first, I assumed it would only be temporary. Weeks became months. My departure date grew closer. Mom grew stronger, but not strong enough. One evening, I found her sitting alone on the back porch watching the sunset. "You've been quiet lately," I said. She smiled without looking at me. "I'm practicing for what?" "For the house being quiet." I sat beside her. "It's only a year. I know. I'll call every day." "No, I'll visit." She nodded. "I know." None of those answers sounded convincing. A few days later, Lily came home for the weekend. The three of us made dinner together, or at least we tried. Mom insisted on helping. She dropped a bowl, then another. Finally, she laughed at herself. Guess the kitchen wins tonight. We all laughed. But afterward, when Mom went upstairs, Lily turned to me. You've noticed, haven't you? Notice what? She's pretending she's doing better than she is. I didn't answer, because she was right. Mom worked hard to look stronger whenever I was around. Maybe because she didn't want me to worry, or maybe because she knew what I was about to do a week before my flight. I packed my apartment into boxes. My camera gear filled 2 suitcases. Every item represented years of saving. I should have been excited. Instead, I kept staring at Mom's framed family photo sitting on my desk the morning before I left. She surprised me with breakfast. Real breakfast, pancakes burnt around the edges. She laughed when she saw my face. I may have forgotten how long they'd stay on the stove. They're perfect. They're terrible. They're Mom pancakes. Ah, she smiled. That's fair. After breakfast, she handed me a small wrapped package. Inside was the old camera Grandpa had given me. I thought you kept this. I did. I want you to take it. It doesn't even work anymore. I know. She gently touched the camera. Neither did your grandfather's knees when he taught you how to use it. I laughed. He complained every 5 minutes. Sure did. Then she looked at me with tears in her eyes. But he still showed up. That sentence stayed with me all day. The next morning we drove to the airport. The ride felt strangely normal. We joked about bad drivers, argued over music, stopped for coffee. It almost felt like any other day until we parked. Mom hugged me first, longer than usual. I'm proud of you. I love you. I love you more. Lily hugged me next. Neither of them cried, at least not in front of me. I made it through check-in. I made it through security. Then my phone rang. Lily, she never cried. Not even when Dad left, not even when Grandpa died. This time she could barely speak. If you get on that plane, she whispered, I don't think Mom will ever recover. I looked through the glass toward the boarding gate. What happened? Oh, she smiled until you walked away. And the second you disappeared, Lily started crying again. She completely fell apart. I closed my eyes. I don't know what to do, I know. She told me not to call you. Why? Because she doesn't want to be the reason you give up your dream. The boarding announcement echoed through the terminal. Passengers began lining up. My heart pounded. It's hard I could barely hear anything else. For years, I'd imagined this exact moment. Only it never looked like this. In every version of my dream, everyone was happy. Nobody was hurting. Reality rarely gives us perfect choices. I walked toward the gate, then stopped. I remembered something Grandpa used to say, dreams are important, but the people who cheer for them are priceless. I looked at the old camera inside my backpack, then I turned around. I walked out of the boarding area, back through the terminal, back toward the exit. By the time I reached the parking garage, Mom and Lily were still sitting in the car. Mom looked shocked. What are you doing here? I smiled. I missed my flight. Her eyes widened. No, I did. You can't. I already did. She immediately shook her head. No, you worked too hard. I'll figure something out. You'll lose the fellowship. I know. Tears rolled down her face. I never wanted that. I know. She grabbed my hand. I wanted you to fly. I know. But I also wanted to know, her voice cracked, that if I needed you, I squeezed her hand before she could finish. You'd never have to wonder. None of us spoke for several minutes. Sometimes silence says everything. The following months weren't easy. I picked up freelance photography jobs. Around town, senior portraits, local events, real estate listings. It wasn't glamorous some days. I questioned whether I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. Then something unexpected happened. One afternoon, I'd photographed an injured bald eagle at a local wildlife rehabilitation center. The center shared my photos online. Within a week, one image had been viewed millions of times. Magazines reached out. Conservation groups contacted me. One editor asked if I'd be interested in creating a documentary series highlighting wildlife rescues across America. The job let me travel, not constantly, but enough. Even better, Most assignments lasted only a few days at a time. I could still come home. Mom recovered more every month. Eventually, she started volunteering at the same rehabilitation center where I took that famous photo. Watching her smile again felt like receiving a second chance. One evening, she handed me the old camera. "I think it's yours again," I laughed. "It still doesn't work." She smiled. It already did. Years later, I realized something I wish I'd understood sooner. I thought success meant reaching the exact destination I'd planned. Life taught me that success sometimes means having the courage to change the route without giving up the dream. I never became the photographer I imagined when I was 22. I became someone better, someone who learned that the most. Meaningful pictures aren't always taken in distant places. Sometimes they're taken across the dinner table, on the back porch, in a hospital hallway, or in the quiet moments when the people we love need us most. Looking back, I don't regret missing that flight. Not because it was easy, not because everything worked out perfectly, but because every time I look at my mom laughing while feeding a recovering eagle, I know I didn't lose my dream. I simply found the version of it that let me keep the people who made that dream possible in the first place. So here's the question I still think about from time to time. If you had one chance to chase the dream you'd worked for your entire life, but the people you loved needed you at that exact moment, what would you choose? And could you live with the decision either way?